Welcome to not just another edition of Anglican Unscripted, but episode 300. Confetti falling. No, people cheering in the background. They can't believe they make it. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. Today's June 20, 2017.
Okay, George, there's a lot of news today, but people are going to want to hear a little about the history of how we got to 300. Was it worth it? And yes, the technology has changed a lot. George and I are still the same. Well, no, I had more hair. The hair's gone. You used to work over in Vero Beach. Now you have a parish in Central Florida.
On the other coast. I went from the East Coast to the West Coast.
And I went from the Litchfield Hills to the shores of Milford, you know. A lot has changed, George.
Yes.
In fact, when we started, both our kids were in high school. Your daughters were, your twins were in high school, and my two oldest were in high school. Boy, lots changed.
I don't think we actually used dial-up modems at the time, but it seemed like it.
Yeah. Oh, the technology has changed, George, hasn't it?
Oh, Kevin, it would take hours, an afternoon or an evening to put together a show. And that was just my side. You had an incredible amount of work in the studio trying to put all this together.
Well, except for the first episode, we've always used Skype. You and I would just call each other, and we would do about half an hour pre-show, where I would sit down and you would have a list of things that we should talk about. This is even before Anglican Inc. And say, well, this is the stuff I've heard and rumors I've heard and stuff we should talk about. So we do a little pre-show and stuff like that. And then we'd each get out a little camera we had on tripods, these little Kodak Z1.8s or ZI8s. And we would try and synchronize because it was a pain to edit it later. And we would go 3, 2, 1, and you'd press your record button. I'd press my record button. And when the show was all done, you would upload your feed, and I would kind of zip them together in Final Cut Pro and try and synchronize it, so if I'd said something, you weren't laughing over the line or I wasn't interrupting you rudely again. That was all done because we had split screens. Now, due to expensive equipment and better Skype, I'm just pulling your feed right off your webcam.
We would have to do, and when we would do something over again, we had so many technical failings, and of the internet cutting out, of sound not quite working.
Somebody not having the camera pointed at him, but I'd get half a face of George because at some point he had bumped the camera and didn't notice it. Yeah, I remember those days, George.
But there's been an exponential improvement in the quality of the technology that enables us to bring you this show. Yeah. Now, we've not gotten any better,
no.
But we're not as annoying to look at through the technical.
Yes, we're both in focus. We're both well lit. When we're embarrassed, our faces are red. When we're tired, our faces are pale. Before we get to the news, and I got a lot. Oh, it's from the IRS. Oh, weird. Before we get to the news, I have a gift I want to send to the first person who can write in the comments where the very first Anglican Unscripted was recorded. We didn't record in the studio for the first one. I just grabbed George and said, sit down in these chairs in front of this location to record episode 1. And if you can name it, you get a prize that nobody else has. And no, it's not the sock that my dog is currently chewing on under the table. So it'll be something special.
My cat did not have more kittens. Our last giveaway involved giving away cats. Clean up the house.
That didn't go so well. Nobody answered that question. George, on to the first item in news. Our favorite character in the Episcopal Church currently, Bishop John Bruno, has once again ticked off 8:15 by doing something very disturbing that he was told not to, asked not to, and he's in our news again. And we're going to be so careful because we don't want to get sued for slander or libel, George. Be careful.
Well, last week, attorneys for the complainants in the case against John Bruno for misconduct told the hearing panel that they had received information that Bishop Bruno had entered into a sale agreement of the rectory and St. James Newport Beach, that he was trying secretly to sell these properties before the court made a decision in his case. Now, this caused pandemonium among everybody involved, and the court said to Bishop Bruno, "Is this true?" Bishop Bruno's lawyers responded, "We object to your asking us this question.
That's what Bishop Bruno would say.
We will not tell you." So
I don't have to answer those questions.
So on Saturday, June 17th, the hearing panel issued an emergency order of sanctions. It sanctioned Bishop Bruno, saying you may not sell these properties. You may not, your agent, your whoever you want to call it, may not get rid of these properties until we reach a final decision in this matter. And if you do, you're going to face real trouble. We're not going to tell you what that trouble is, but you're going to be in big trouble.
Big trouble, not just little trouble. George, I'm a little more trivia. This is going to be trivia episode 300. Do you remember who said, Bishop Bruno, he scares the shit out of me? Who said that?
It's a suffragan bishop, Mary Glasspool. Mary Glasspool told the rector of the vicar of St. James Newport Beach that no, she couldn't help because she was so scared of Bishop Bruno. He was such a thug. And Kevin, at this point, we're past issues of ideology. We're past all the normal Episcopal nonsense. We're now into character flaw territory.
Yeah, this is pure paganism 101, character faults galore on both sides, and George and I have our faults. This is just beyond anything I can compare it to. I mean, if 815 had a soap opera and this was one of the episodes, it would be one of the best episodes, but probably not the best episode because there's so many other episodes to come. This would be the cliffhanger of something wonderful.
Yeah, but I pride myself on being a writer, and I tell you, this just wouldn't work. The villain is just not believable. No. John Bruno is too one-dimensional, too flat. He's just, there's no human side to him. It wouldn't work as fiction, but it's still the truth.
Okay, well, let's get into the practical manners. This is the serious side here. What can Michael Curry do something right now? Can he say, I immediately am ordering Bishop Bruno to step aside or sanction him, or what can the leadership at 815 do right now?
Well, within the realm of possibility, the presiding bishop can suspend Bishop Bruno for cause.
Okay.
Will he do that? I don't think so, because I think this is going to give an impetus to the hearing panel to come up with its decision.
I have a better I know Bishop Curry presiding Bishop Curry from time to time watches this program. This is for you, presiding bishop. We call on you to immediately have Bishop Bruno step down. This is ridiculous beyond compare. And people are looking at the Episcopal Church and saying, yeah, this is just, another, straw in the camel's back thing. This is ridiculous.
Well, from a practical point of view, no buyer in their right mind would acquire these properties from Bishop Bruno under this cloud.
Yeah,
because as soon as you had no one would give them title insurance because this is a pure loser. Bishop Bruno is under threat of removal from office for his property management and amongst other things. And the Orange County, California courts have held that, well, you can't sell property anyway in the Episcopal Church without the approval of General Convention. We'll let Alan Haley talk about that one. That was a few years ago. And guess who caused that ruling? That's a John Bruno ruling.
That's Bruno.
And so nobody's going to buy this thing unless it's at some fire sale price to his nephew. Otherwise, I just can't see any prudent businessmen wanting to get themselves involved in this mess.
Let him go, Curry. Tell him to walk. It's your only hope. On to other news. We're going to go across the sea to the Church of Wales, where a certain deacon, as part of her pre-installation activities, has decided she could become more spiritually aware, more satisfied, more sanctioned in her upcoming deaconship if she fasts within a mosque in her local community on Ramadan.
Kevin,
Now, you were talking about writing before, and we're talking about Bishop Bruno. Nobody would believe that. I read this story in Anglican Ink, and I said, no, that's not true.
Well, Kevin, it is an intergalactic planetary exclusive.
Yes, it is.
No, not really, because this actually came out of a Diocese of Bangor press release. The diocese, the bishop, Andy John, really thinks this is something that they want to tell the world about. You have a woman training for the diaconate. The day before her ordination, she spends with Muslims praying in a mosque and then joining them for their iftar meal. That's the meal you have at the end of the day-long fast in Ramadan. And by the way, she's also on the gay, lesbian, bisexual, questioning, asexual, whatever.
Yeah.
Acronym
of the week, yes.
Now, it's one of the odd, really crazy things that we're seeing in Britain and in the United States these days of the hard left of the gay movement forming common cause with Islam. We see, Islam is very straightforward on homosexuality. I mean, Kevin, we've seen the videos of ISIS murdering gay men, tossing them off buildings. There's no subtlety. There's no nuance. There's no, we'll find a pastoral way to take care of this. They kill them. And yet, the gay lobby in Britain, political lobby, and in some parts of the church are in bed with Islam. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever. And the thing is that the bishop thinks this is perfectly fine, so much so that we're going to tell the world about our wonderful deacon sharing her spiritual formation with her fellow believers who happen to believe in Muhammad and Allah, but not Jesus Christ.
Allah called for the killing. Not Allah. Muhammad called for the killing of gays. I just some of these stories,
And the part of the problem we have in the Anglican Communion is that churches punch above their weight.
Yes, they do.
The Church of Scotland's got 30,000 members. The Church in Wales, maybe about that many. It's less than 1% of the population. The Episcopal Church is larger as a percentage than the Church of Wales is. Yet the Church of Wales is given equal footing and standing to the Church of Nigeria. There's no... it's just crazy. It really is. This is one of the most... This church, it rivals the Anglican Church of Canada in its race to nothingness.
Yes.
In terms of members.
Well, we're just going to have to celebrate them all as winners of nothingness. We'll just have... There'll be no trophies except the trophy of participation. And as far as our participation into the race of nothingness, we have the Episcopal Church, we have Canada, we have Wales, Scotland. More and more are going to just get those wonderful participation trophies. What's so sad for me is that here's a woman in training for the ministry, and no one has taken the time to train her properly. So I can't blame this woman for doing what she is told by her peers and by her bishop is a laudable thing. In other words, you can't. This woman may seem to us foolish. I don't know her from Adam. She may be a wonderful person. She may be a harridan. Who knows? But the powers that be are allowing this to take place. I think that's so troubling on so many levels. Yes, crazy. Let's move on to a bit of GAFCON news, ACNA GAFCON news, ACNA Scotland GAFCON news. We talked about what's happening a couple weeks ago with Andrew Lyons going to be consecrated in the upcoming ACNA Synod at Wheaton. And one of the things we didn't talk about at the time was the Achilles heel of GAFCON. One of the things in the structures and setup to GAFCON was it was based on a relationship between the primates of the church and GAFCON. You were a GAFCON primate. There was never a GAFCON province, so to say. There's nobody, maybe the ACNA, but nobody really has in their bylaws that we are a GAFCON province, and that's a relationship. So we kind of seen this, what I'll call a wine and dine mythology that I'll talk about a little bit later. But when it's just with the primates, and primates who turn over every 3, 4, 5, 6 years, to the point where the next GAFCON meeting held in Jerusalem will probably only have one original primate attending. That would be Greg Venables. This is Achilles' heel and makes an easy pickings for the Episcopal Church and the Church of England, George. We're already seeing a bit of trouble in places like Tanzania, Kenya, and some of the east coast of Africa.
Yeah. Remember in the past, Bernard Malongo was Archbishop of Central Africa. Mm-hmm. And Bernard was one of the warriors with Henry Arambi and Peter Akinola. I don't think he was there in time for GAFCON 1, but Central Africa was fully in line. Then he was replaced. And his successor, Albert Chama, is not liberal, but they take a great deal of money and support from the Church of England. And so they backed away. Mm-hmm. West Africa, Justice Akrofi was one of the original GAFCON provinces. Justice Akrofi retired. His successor pulled out of GAFCON because he is closely tied to the Episcopal Church and the Church of England. We're now seeing that happen in Kenya. The new Archbishop, Jackson Ole Sabbath, is a GAFCON supporter. I don't doubt his own personal convictions. However, within his church, the House of Bishops is not standing fast on GAFCON. They're being influenced by the Church of England, the Anglican Consultative Council, the Episcopal Church, and the opponents of GAFCON are playing the tribal card. Archbishop Ole Sapit is a Maasai. It's one of the minority tribes. Mm-hmm. And so there are tribal divisions being played up so that he has to move very cautiously. And he actually believes the stuff that Justin Welby tells him about the Council of Nicaea.
I mean, how important is Kenya? Well, GAFCON 2 was held in Nairobi, Kenya. It's always been a staunch supporter of GAFCON and willing to work within and at times lead GAFCON. Now, that makes it a very important part. What we have noticed, George and I, from this side of the ocean, is that there's a new methodology within the Church of England. It may not be new. We just finally learned about it. And the Episcopal Church, called wine and dine. And that's to not work on the primates. The primates of GAFCON are going to stick together and whatnot. But if we could just divide the House of Bishops and people further down the line, there'll be no trouble making sure the next primate of Kenya, Tanzania, Congo, Rwanda is not of the same bent or is more influential, can be more influenced by money and dining. So much so that I have a friend bishop here on the East Coast who had an event at his church, called one of his good bishop friends from Kenya and said, "Do you want to come attend?" He goes, "Oh, I'm here in America already." "Oh, you're here in America already?" "Yes, I'm down in an Episcopal diocese in the South being wined and dined by so-and-so church by so-and-so person." And by the way, active bishop, I have a bone to pick with you about GAFCON consecrating a primate in the Church of England. You shouldn't be doing that. That's border crossing. Well, this ACNA bishop said, "What are you talking about? Scotland did the same thing that America did, and that's the reason we have GAFCON and the ACNA." He goes, No. My host in the Episcopal Church told me that's not true, that this is only about border crossing. And that's wine and dine 101. To go in there, bring them over here to America, show them a good time, and say, it's back to Adam and Eve in the garden. They didn't really say that, did he?
Right. As we speak right now, there's something called the Bishops in Dialogue. This was something started by the Anglican Church of Canada, and some Canadian, American, and English liberal bishops attend this, and they do joint things with African counterparts. The last one, Archbishop Eliud Wabakula, absolutely condemned this, saying that no Kenyan should go to this. This is a terrible thing. This is trying to split us. Guess where the current session is being held?
Kenya? Nairobi, yeah, of course.
A year later, Wabakula's out of office, and the new archbishop is weak enough that the Bishop of Nairobi can be host to the, for want of better words, the Quisling group within the Anglican Church of Kenya.
So I would assume that GAFCON should change their bylaws, and churches that are provinces that are currently affiliated with GAFCON should change their bylaws so that there's more of a connection at a canonical legal level, so that there's not so much pendulum sway every time there's a new primate. That would just be my humble suggestion. For all I know, they already have that in paper, and they're spreading it around this week. George, let's do a quick follow-up. We're going kind of long. It's the 300th episode. Update on Stacey Sauls. He used to be kind of the CEO of the 815 Episcopal Church here in New York, and he got canned, and some other people got canned, and he said, well, I'm going to sue because you can't can me unless you pay me more. Now they're trying to work out the details. What are the details?
Well, there's a wrongful suit, wrongful dismissal, defamation, so on and so on and so on. And Sauls actually has a good point. He was never actually told why he was fired. But he was fired, and he can't get a job as a dog catcher now.
No,
so the word is going around that he's dirty. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But so he brought a lawsuit in Mobile, Alabama, of all places. Episcopal Church moved to have it dismissed, saying this occurred in New York, which should be a New York case. And the courts in Alabama held, no, we can try it here, and we want you to have arbitration, mediation, before we go any further. Settle this thing. Which is an indication that Sauls has a case.
Yeah.
In other words, he could win something here unless the Episcopal Church comes to the table and makes him an offer that is fair and reasonable in the court's eyes.
From the briefs that I read, no matter how dirty he was, or is, or may be, no accusation, they did not correctly let him go.
It was an issue of basic fairness.
Yeah.
And he was not treated fairly.
No. So, all right, that was episode 300. Oh, boy. I can't believe we got that far. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. And you've been watching episode 300 of Anglican Unscripted.